season 4 that I would be telling you all the secrets about law of attraction and what I've learned. And today I felt truly inspired to come to you and share with you the magical power of saying no. There's such a thing as radical alignment, and I wanted to just share with you my experience over the course of the last couple weeks and what that means. So, I've been radio silent on the podcast, and usually I'm not. Like, I think I've missed 2 weeks in 2 years, and usually it's something comes up, and I just haven't had the time to prepare something in advance, or I'm ill, right? I have truly never had a time when recording my podcast felt out of alignment. But I really didn't feel like it was aligning. I felt like it was unaligning trying to do this new thing that if I do it successfully, I'm going to offer you to watch this podcast on YouTube. It's not just watching the podcast on YouTube because I look fantastic or anything else. It's because it feels super soul aligning. Today, in fact, I had some testing done at a specialist's office, and I am wearing a junky old hat that I keep in my SUV for times when it's either too sunny or windy, or I have a wackadoo hair day and I'm out and about. I almost never wear a hat in a weekday setting, but today was just one of those days. And I just want to share with you about saying no in your life and what happens when that happens. So, as a former people pleaser, a recovering people pleasing addict, and someone who really felt the need to satisfy everyone around me, putting myself last, it's important to note that there's nothing truly noble about doing that. There's such a thing as a servant's heart, which, if you are a Christian faith or some of the other faiths, I know Islam, one of the pillars of Islam is service. But really, if you feel like you have a servant's heart, that doesn't mean that you have to always be last or not have your needs met or make yourself so small that you become invisible. No, 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 my friend. If you end up putting yourself last for too long, you'll end up in a situation, which is why I'm wearing the hat and why I had to go get the testing in the first place 7 years ago. So, what does people pleasing and saying no and law of attraction have to do with alignment? Well, there could be construed or perceived that I should have recorded this podcast because people rely on the downloads every week and they enjoy hearing the new material that I create. And if I don't do this obligation that I've committed to 2 years ago, that I'm letting people down. But one can argue that recording something out of alignment or just when it didn't feel right would be less of a service to my audience and to myself, to my family, even, than just sticking with it and making it happen, right? Now, bear with me. When I record a podcast, I usually have an outline, a bunch of notes, some research. If you listen to season 1 and season 2, you know I did a ton of research on things, but I sometimes do these freestyle episodes, and today is no exception. When I do a freestyle episode, it's because I'm feeling inspired, because I know that the words are just going to come right through me exactly as you need to hear them, and exactly as is going to be the most inspiring for you. Because, see, when I set out to do this podcast, I wanted it to be informative, helpful, entertaining, all those things that you probably skipped right over the intro for, and many other episodes, and that's perfectly okay. But in the last couple of weeks, I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling like recording. I had topics, I had tons of things that were presented to me from clients, from teaching experiences, and from my own life. And I would formulate them. I would send myself voice notes during a drive or something and try to make sure that everything was like captured. But then when it was time to sit down and record, I got nothing. Like literally nothing would decide to come out. I would want to, but another part of me didn't want to because you see, I had put my own, call them needs on the back burner for so long that I just needed a little break. And using the inner voice and that sort of thought process, if you will, that unmindy type of living, I sort of teed myself up for this back in May when I was warning you, if you were listening, that I would be taking some unplanned vacations because I just needed time away. I needed time to reconnect with my family, to reconnect with myself, and frankly, just to do the whole summer spring cleaning thing. Like, literally, one day I decided instead of recording the podcast, I was gonna reorganize all of the closets and storage in my house. Crazy, right? But it felt so good and so aligning to do in that moment that I didn't even worry about it because I knew you'd be fine on your own. I knew that you would be totally okay listening to older episodes or finding new resources or maybe taking a break yourself. Many times in my life, I've really said yes because I had an obligation, a perceived obligation, or a fear that someone was going to tell me that I disappointed them, or they're upset with me, or they need something from me that I didn't provide or didn't come through on. When in fact, I could have probably said no and they would have found whatever resources that they needed or other alternatives or whatever. And in the moment, sometimes we say yes, and then the day comes and we're like, why did I say yes? I don't want to do this. And then we go to the thing and we're like, I'm so glad I did this. It was so rewarding and fun. But these aren't those times. I'm talking about times when you're just zapped to the limit, you're exhausted, you don't know when the last time you took a break was, and you're just still going and going and going, whether that's producing at work or producing for your kids' schools or your spouse or whatever, and you end up so exhausted, it can lead to burnout. That's putting your needs last. That's saying yes when you should have said no. And that doesn't help anybody because you end up resenting the situation or sometimes even the person who you agreed to help out. When I had the whole health issue that I was alluding to in the beginning of this episode, I was saying yes to everything. I was saying yes to my job. I was saying yes to my boss. I was saying yes to my then narcissistic husband. I was saying yes to my social obligations. I was saying yes to my side hustle of selling Mary Kay. I was saying yes to everything. Yes to travel. Yes to unrealistic expectations from the people I was serving in my day job. And I was working over 120 hours a week. I would come home and not have a very good home life at the time and feel stressed out, chaotic, ungrounded, and just completely like if you picture a horse like running wild with the eyes and like frothing at the mouth, like that was me. Okay. Now I did this and lived this sort of lifestyle for over 5 years. It was not good. Like I couldn't imagine what my cortisol levels were like, but whatever the stress hormones are, in addition to that, they were coursing through my body, keeping me up until midnight and getting me up early, early in the morning to keep going. There's only so much candle wick if you're burning the candle at both ends that can go along. And when you take the burden of responsibility for an unhealthy marriage like mine or an unhealthy job situation and you don't assert your authority in saying no, guess what happens? You end up in the hospital. It's only a matter of time before your body says, enough. I am failing you. I am giving you a wake up call in one way or the other. For some people in middle age, this can look like a heart attack, and that's scary as you know what. For others, it can look like mine did, which was kind of a stress episode gone way haywire to where I literally lost my ability to see. I had numbness in my body, and I was crumpling to the floor in my office. Now, luckily, they didn't call an ambulance, but I did have to go right to the hospital, which was 2 minutes away at the time. And I had some tests run. The tests that they ran at the hospital didn't prove conclusive. Like it wasn't a stroke, it wasn't a heart attack, it wasn't an episode that they could detect. So they sent me to a neurologist. When I met with this neurologist, she was so kind and so understanding, and she knew what stress did to the mind and to the body. However, she diagnosed me with a kind of thing that I had never heard of before. And I had a really hard time finding the diagnosis after all of the testing was done. But I ended up taking medication for like almost 7 years since then because of this episode. Now, I had no other episodes like that in that whole entire time. I was put on medication, and I digress. I did have some episodes, okay, early on. There was a few, but they weren't ever quite as severe as that, to where I lost my vision, lost my sense of self, or felt like I couldn't carry on. I had some episodes that were stressful and nerve-wracking from a trust your body perspective, but it was never that bad once I made decisions to start saying no. Some of the things that I had to say no to were situations that I just didn't want to be in socially in my relationship. I had been putting myself aside for so long. I had been making myself small, having my needs go unmet for so many years that I would agree to go and hang out with a bunch of alcoholics, not say a word all night, but sit in a corner quietly nursing my beer. Really bad, right? And these people were not anything special to me. It was just people that I had an obligation to because of my ex-husband. Again, the work situation, saying yes to everything there and no to what I really needed, which was some designated playtime, was like instrumental in causing me to get to that level of stress. Saying yes to my family, not just my marital family at the time, but my family of origin that was pretty dysfunctional, which is why I left home when I was still in high school. But really saying yes to them and all of their needs and not drawing that boundary line was another instrumental component of my ultimate stress breakdown. So I'm going to invite you to look at your life where you're maybe saying yes too much and ask yourself, are you just afraid of letting other people down? Are you afraid of judgment? Are you afraid of failure or looking like you failed, perceived failure? What is it that you could be avoiding that you're doing by saying yes, right? Another aspect that I want you to really look at is, what are you gaining by saying yes? Do you really have status and prestige in other people's eyes by saying yes? Are you really going to be that much of a better parent by staying up until 2 a.m. baking cookies and writing cards out for your kids' class? Or can you just run by the grocery store and pick up, some already made stuff and just call it good enough? Right? After all, nobody's grading us on this life in terms of you got 150% on this assignment. You're going to, go to the front of the class or whatever. There's no reward for saying yes when you really mean no. You're just doing yourself a disservice, the others around you a disservice, and ultimately your body a disservice because you're going to pay the price. When you want to be in alignment, like you really want to live your life for your full manifesting power, you want to attract all the good things in your life, and you want to have a peaceful life, I want you to ask yourself, what can I say no to that's going to allow space for these other things to come into my life that I truly want? You can look at the things that feel good and aligning. And I'm not just talking about sitting on the couch and drinking, your favorite drink and watching your favorite show all day. I'm talking like in line with your life's mission and what you have to offer the world beyond just acts of service or material production. What is it that your soul wants you to do? For me, 7 years ago, my soul wanted me to get the heck out of that relationship. It wanted me to get the heck out of that job. It wanted me to get the heck out of that city once I started tuning in and listening to what my soul wanted me to do. I'm not saying you should run away from your life by any means, but you can look at where you've overcommitted and been trying to do more than is humanly possible in any given circumstance. And maybe just start by small things instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to have the perfect meal prep, the perfect outfit. My hair is going to be perfect. I'm wearing a ball cap for today, for goodness sakes. And just go with what feels right to you. You can show up to an event without makeup on for once, right? I know as a woman, it can be really hard to feel less than your best when you see women who are made up and perfectly coiffed and everything's great and you're just barely happy that you got some pants on. Because I've done that, literally looked down in the car to see if I was wearing pants because I was in such a hurry in the morning getting ready for my day. I was overcommitted, clearly. And I'm not kind of ashamed to say that's happened more than once, but such is life, right? I set out on this podcast to be honest and raw and real with you, and that's as real as it gets. So I hope this really helps you as you're going through your life and evaluating what makes your heart sing, what makes you feel good. Because when you have a good vibe, you're going to be presenting your best self to the world. You're going to walk around with your head up and your eyes bright and totally able to give your absolute best to the world. And you're not going to be grumbling or saying, oh, I can't believe I did this. And why do I have to do this? It's always me. I'm so busy, blah, 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 blah. No, you can say, I feel so good about donating my time every week to this charitable organization for 2 hours. I don't have to be there for 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours. 2 hours is what I have to give, and it feels perfect. Trust me, done that too when I was overcommitted in volunteering. Cut it back, right? Just allow yourself some boundaries and allow yourself that space and just see what you can cultivate in your life. Well, I'm going to wrap up. I've got a meeting this evening yet. Yes, I'm still pretty obligated, pretty booked, and pretty enjoying my life, though. There's a big difference between doing things that feel light and fun and things that feel heavy and oppressive to your soul that you just keep saying yes because you're afraid to disappoint, afraid of what people will think, or afraid of what might happen, right? Maybe this saying no gives somebody else an opportunity to step in and pick up where you needed to allow them to let their talents to shine. So anyways, enjoy your week and please go check out the video. If I post it in the link, if you want to watch a podcast and see what happens in my office/guest room that I did nothing to prepare for. Once again, I just popped on here. I wanted to come while I was inspired and give you my very best advice for today. So thanks again for spending time with me, and we'll chat really, really soon.